Good morning, friends. I'm Dr. Michelle. This is Swami Nirmala, and it's our joy to be with you this morning. I'm going to read from Rays of the One Light, weekly commentaries on the Bible and Bhagavad Gita. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. Chapter 1 of the Gospel of St. John states, "But as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of God, even to them that believe on his name." This was a passage that Paramhansa Yogananda often quoted to his disciples. Be in tune, he would tell them. Delusion can't touch you if you will keep in tune. A few of you will fall, he said once, but it needn't be if you would stay in tune. Of a disciple who became highly advanced, even though she didn't meditate much, he said, she got there by attunement. To one who found meditation difficult, he said, I will meditate for you as long as you stay in tune. Truth is a state of consciousness, not a well-worded definition. It is in that consciousness above all that our lives are transformed. Therefore, the Bhagavad Gita states in the 10th chapter, to those who are ever attached to me and who worship me with love, I impart discernment by means of which they attain me. Out of my love for them, I, the divine within them, set a light in them, the radiant lamp of wisdom, thereby dispelling the darkness of their ignorance. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Today we're talking about attunement, soul receptivity. And I was reminded of a time when I used to do a lot of kirtans. And this one rehearsal, I remember we got together before the program and we were going to go over things, make sure we had everything straight. And we spent an entire hour trying to get all the guitars in tune. There was no time to go over anything. It was all just trying to get the guitars to be in tune with each other. It was very frustrating. And I remember after that, one of my friends, who was a consummate musician, he could play anything. I was in an antique store with him once, and there was a Tibetan horn that was about 9 feet long up on the wall, this little horn at the end. And I'm sort of feeding back here. Anyway, he mentioned to the storekeeper, can I have a look at that horn? And she brought it down and he was able to play it. Ancient horn. Anyway, he, from that time on, since it took an hour for the musicians to get in tune, when he came, he would just take everybody's guitar one at a time and just tune it. And he did it in 30 seconds. He'd do one, hand it back, take the other one, do it. And I said, how come you can do this and everybody else takes an hour to tune up? And he said, oh, it's easy. It's just you watch the sound waves. And if they're harmonious, it's in tune. If they're clashing, they're not in tune. So with a 6-string guitar, there's 6 different strings, each tuned to a different note. So when they're in tune, it's not as though they're all the same. It's that they're harmonious. They're not running into each other. The sound waves aren't bumping into each other. They're just flowing together in attunement. So, how does that translate to us? We are not becoming the same as the guru. We're not a yes man just doing exactly imitation of the guru, but we're being ourselves in harmony with the guru. There's a story that Yogananda used to tell about this teacher who had been taught to be very stern and opinionated, and so that's how he taught his students to do exactly what he told them, to obey him, everything he did. And so one day his students asked him, please, can you tell us how to find God? And he said, yes, but you have to promise that you'll do exactly what I tell you. He said, oh yes, we will. And so he took them into the temple and he sat down on the floor, and all of them sat down on the floor. And then he was so surprised that they were in lockstep unity, but he didn't mind, and he wanted them to obey. And so he started by saying, can you open the window over there? We need a little more air. And so all 200 of them said, can you open the window? We need a little more air. And as they opened the window, a gust of wind came in and he started coughing. And so all of them, and he said, what's the matter with you people? And they all stood up and said, what's the matter with you people? And then he couldn't stand it anymore and he went running out. And so all of them got up and ran outside, and he jumped in the well, and all 200 of them jumped in the well. That was the end of that sect. So it's not as though God is saying, be exactly like me and do, well, he is saying be perfect, but be your perfect self. That's the beauty of studying the lives of the saints. They're all so different, and they're all so wonderful. There was now to balance that and give you another little insight into attunement, there was a story of a guru and his disciple out walking in the countryside. And at one point they stopped to just enjoy the beauty that was all around them. And the guru pointed up to the sky and said, oh, look, a flock of cranes, beautiful white birds. And the disciple next to him said, yes, look, beautiful cranes. And then the guru said, oh, wait, they're geese. And the disciple said, yes, indeed, they are geese. Now, was he being a yes man? No, he wasn't. He was so perfectly in tune with his guru that what his guru saw is what he saw. So that's a completely different thing. To be so in tune, and I bet you've had a child or a pet or a lover or a parent that you were so in tune with that even if they were sick and not able to communicate, you still knew what they needed. They would just lift their hand and you knew that's what they need. You'd hand them the water, you'd hand them whatever it was, because your attunement was so perfect. When we were in India, so many wild things happened, just very unusual. It was great preparation in life to go through those experiences. But Swami wanted to be open to starting a monastery there, and we have wonderful, wonderful deep monks now in India. But in the beginning, there were quite a few people coming and going. And Swami was not very strict. He was very open about most things. But there were a few rules in the monastery that people had to abide by. Well, this one fellow was really not cut out for the Ananda monastery. And he stayed for some time, and Swami worked with him, and Dharmadas and I did too. But it became clear after a while that he needed to move on. And he didn't speak English very well, but he was very vocal. And so finally it came to the point where Swami he said, I'm going to be very stern with him, and we're asking him to leave. So Swami, Dharmadas, and me sat him down, and we could hardly get a word in edgewise. But Swami at one point turned to him and very sternly said, now you're just going to have to leave. We can't have you here any longer. You're going to have to leave. And the man just completely ignored him and went on. And Swami looked at me and went, he was not angry in the slightest. It was just like this goofy little smile, and he rolled his eyes, and what are we going to do? That is a case in point of having to listen. We need to learn to listen, not just to someone's words, but to everything about them. In fact, we were doing the Raja Yoga class last Thursday and talking about yogas chitta vritti nirod. Yoga is the neutralization of the whirlpools, the vrittis of feeling. Yoga, everything we've ever experienced, every emotion, every outburst, everything, it's all stored in the spine, in the vrittis in the spine. And what kriya-yoga does, and yoga in general, is it brings those vrittis, memories, karma, up to the spiritual eye like a fire ceremony, and burns it up, purifies it, releases that energy. So what we need to do, and what I was so intrigued about in studying for that class, was that we need to still the mind, still the body, still the consciousness, still the thoughts. And the way that we do that is by releasing likes and dislikes. Isn't that fascinating? I like this person. Oh, I don't like that person. I like this food. I can't stand that food. On and on and on and on and on. All the likes and dislikes that we have. We need to neutralize them. That's part of being even-minded. To just go through life with an even consciousness. And the more that we can still the consciousness, still the thoughts, still the likes and dislikes, then Swami says we begin to become aware in stillness of that subtle flow of energy, the subtle flow of divine grace. It's not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy. We have to become so still that we can perceive. That's why the Bible says, be still and know that I am God. We have to know that. We have to feel that. So there's another great story that I love about 3 sadhus in India centuries ago. They were a ragged bunch, and they traveled all over India, and they decided they wanted to go to this particular ashram to witness a very powerful initiation ritual ceremony. And so they traveled a long way, and they reached the ashram, and the ashram was huge. The courtyard alone would hold 1,000 people. And there were 1,000 people in the courtyard. And all the buildings around it, around the courtyard, the roofs were all filled with people. And the outbuildings beyond the ashram, all those roofs were filled with people. So these 3 sadhus came and saw how crowded it was. So they stopped a little distance from the ashram, and they climbed a tree, all 3 of them. They're up in the high branches of the tree, and they could see everything. They couldn't hear very well, but they could see everything that was happening for the initiation. And some farmers walked by, and they said, oh, those fools up in the tree, they came so far. What are they going to get, sitting up in a tree? They came so far for so little. But they were very concentrated, and they were aware of the ceremony. They could see everything, even if they couldn't hear every word. They witnessed everything with all their heart's devotion, with all their faith, with all their concentration. And when the ceremony was happening, they were instantly realized. And afterwards, the master who was performing the ritual said to everyone, "Isn't life amazing that of all the illustrious people gathered here today for this ceremony, the 3 who received illumination are outside in a tree." So the outward doesn't matter. It's the inward attunement. And how do we get that attunement? First of all, we have to develop devotion. It's love that helps us to know if that parent or child or lover or friend or pet or whatever it is, if he's sick, if he needs something, we're in tune with them because we love them. We have to cultivate that love for God so that we're not attached to this world, attached to our things, our possessions, our friends, or whatever it is. But we're attached to God. So the first step in devotion is being devoted, to putting your energy into that. That's why I always recommend reading the scriptures, the love letters from God to us, because they're filled with that love for us. God didn't have those scriptures so they could sit on a bookshelf. They're living. Why is it that the Bhagavad Gita that happened centuries ago, that battle of Kurukshetra was long, long ago, why is it so relevant? Why does it feel so powerful? It's because there is no time. People are people forever. Hopefully we're getting a little smarter as the yugas swing up into Dwapara Yuga, and every day the enlightenment power is increasing. Isn't that a wonderful thought? That dual of the sun is getting closer and closer to us, drawing the energy up, helping us to become enlightened. Every day gets better. May not seem like it, but it does. So what we need to do is fill our minds with the right things. That mental diet is all important. I've been fighting my phone addiction for some time, and I keep realizing, and I'm starting to think I'm going to put a note on the bathroom window, on the bathroom mirror that says, "Turn off your phone." And I'm trying to do that more and more, and just not have all of that static in the mind. Whatever we can do to quiet the mind, whatever we can do to free ourselves, to become more and more still. We can help people better if we are. We are happier if we are. So I have time for another story, or maybe two. And these stories that I'm going to tell you now are sort of how to live on the spiritual path and to keep our minds focused on God. So maybe you can remember these out in the marketplace of life and bring the mind back. So there was a monk in India who lived in a cave for solitude and meditation. And the cave had been used for generations by different monks. So it had been remodeled over time. And there was a crude wooden door over the entrance. There was a rocky altar, and there was a little fireplace. So it was still extremely simple, but very nice. And this monk had had a long seclusion there, which was just about to come to an end. And he had received word that the next day his patrons, his benefactors, would be coming there to visit him. And they were bringing supplies and offerings, and they would be asking for his blessings. So he got busy, and he swept out the cave, and he dusted everything, and he polished everything, his little murti, and made the altar really beautiful. He put flowers on the altar, and he stepped back in satisfaction and looked at how beautiful everything was. And then he went, ay, 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 what have I done? I have put all this together. I've cleaned and made everything beautiful. Why? Did I do it for God? No. I did it to impress my patrons. And so he went to the corner and he picked up a handful of dirt and he threw it on the altar. And he said, let them see me as I am. Let them see this cave as it is. I did those offerings to my ego, not to God. And many years later, an Indian saint heard this story and he said, that was the best offering ever given. So, as someone who loves cleanliness and beauty, it was good for me to hear, we want to do these offerings always to God. Let everything you do be always to God, not for yourself. Don't act for yourself or with selfish motives. Always feel throughout your work, throughout your time doing whatever it is, try to feel that listening presence. Feel that movement of grace flowing into you from God. So one last story is actually this same monk went to a gathering of many monks at a patron's house. And all the monks were seated, oldest to youngest, and they would be served individually by attendant monks who would come and, starting with the oldest, feed each monk in turn. So this monk was sitting in his place somewhere in the middle, and he looked up at where the attendant was serving yogurt from a clay pot. And he could see that the yogurt was very beautiful quality, very good yogurt. And he thought to himself, I hope they don't run out before they get to me. And then again, he caught himself, what? Why am I having such a greedy, unseemly thought? And he reached out and he took his bowl and he turned it upside down. And when the attendant came to him, the attendant said to him, please right your bowl so I can give you some yogurt. And the monk put his hand over the bowl and said, no, my greedy mind has already had its share. It's intense. The spiritual path is not for weaklings. It takes courage to look at every thought, to look at every feeling and say, with discernment, like the reading talks about, if we want God, God will give us discernment so that we can choose the right action in every moment. That's all we have the free will to do, is to choose right now, right in this moment, what we will do. And if we have that lamp of wisdom lit by God, then we can make right choices. And we can see the results in our lives. How much more peaceful it is. How much more filled with love it is. The joy of feeling God's presence. I was cleaning in the garden just a little while ago and clearing away the debris of winter, all the fallen leaves, all the sticks and all the mess, and just seeing the new shoots coming up of the hyacinths and the narcissus and all the beautiful flowers. The irises are starting to bloom. All these beautiful, beautiful flowers. like a new creation. The Bible tells us that we will become like a new creation. And as I was cleaning, I was thinking, this is the spiritual path. Clearing away the bad habits, clearing away all the desires, all the likes and dislikes, so that the beauty of God can shine through and flower. So this spring, feel, we may still have some winter, but still, spring is coming. Feel that we're purifying ourselves and becoming new and fresh. And that Spirit of God, that sweetness of grace and blessing is always there, flooding our beings. Let's become still enough that we can perceive it.
I've heard your flute high on a cloud. Your call I can't resist. Oh, let me come and play with you. We'll scatter music with the dew and sound the morning mist. I've heard you piping on a hill. All else I've set aside. Oh, let us dance the mountain peaks. We'll skip with breezes on the creeks and soar the valleys wide. Your flute has called me to the fields. Now I've no place to live. Don't send me back, rejected friend. Whatever I call mine must end. All that I am, I give. I hear your flute in every tree, in every flower and stream, and sweetest melody of all, a song that heaven's joy recalls. Here in my heart you see.